Good morning and welcome to all the DJs listening out there today. The topic of this presentation is financial forecasting for DJs. Now, typically, when you bring up the topic of numbers or accounting or budgets or forecasting to a DJ, their eyes will glaze over like a donut. And actually, I was surprised at a recent DJ Association meeting. I asked by a show of hands, how many of you out there prepare a forecast for the coming year? And I was surprised that just a couple raised their hands, and this was a room full of pretty serious full-time professional DJs. So there is a fear of numbers, I believe, and the purpose of this presentation is to describe the benefits to preparing a budget and forecast, and also providing DJs with a resource through a simple template that I've performed that I'm going to share the files for, so that if you want to take a crack at preparing a forecast for the coming year, now is actually the perfect time. We're in the final week of December, so it's a great time to slow down and set out some goals for the coming year so that you can achieve and grow your business and be the best that you can be. So, with that said, briefly about me. I own a company in central New Jersey called Ambient DJ Service. We're a full-service mobile DJ entertainment company. We specialize in weddings, but do all sorts of events. I also have a background in finance. So for the past 20 plus years, I've had some pretty cool jobs in the industry. Most notably, I was a former equity analyst with Merrill Lynch, working for one of their mutual funds and picking stocks and managing money. I also have 10 years experience in business valuation, have done some business consulting, and currently work as a business broker on the side and sell small to medium-sized Main Street businesses in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Wanted to talk about a few key terms. What's a forecast? What's a budget? So a forecast is a financial model that lists revenues or sales, expenses, profits, and cash flow, and the interplay between all of those variables. Now, a budget tends to refer to the expenditure side of the equation. So a company prepares a budget for the coming year. How much are they going to spend? And once you have that budget, you need to stay within budget and not overspend that amount. So DJs should be preparing budgets, and those budgets would include things like advertising and marketing expense and equipment primarily. Also, if you have a full-time office, there's some significant expenditures there that should be captured in your budget. Why should you prepare a budget and forecast? Well, I'm going to list some important reasons why. First of all, you're creating a financial roadmap for the coming year. John Maxwell stated that, quote, "A budget is telling your money where to go rather than wondering where it went." So there are a lot of DJs who know that they're busy, that they're going to get a lot of referrals, that they're going to be profitable, and therefore feel there's no need to prepare a budget. They just know they're doing well, and that's fine. But imagine if you could do even better if you had a handle on your figures and could say, this year I want to make $100,000 from my business. And to get to that, you need to know a lot more about your numbers and the interplay between revenues and expenses. Second reason is to ensure that your business grows and is profitable. So there's some DJs who, again, just aren't very organized. At the end of the year, they go to their accountant and they figure out that they didn't make any money at all because they spent so much money on gear. If it's a hobby, if it's part-time, maybe profits aren't so important, but if you're full-time or thinking about going full-time, you need to ensure that those profits are there every month to meet your personal expenses, your mortgage, your car payment, your kids' braces, and so on. The next reason to prepare a budget and forecast is that it's a great complement to the business strategies that you put together. So, for example, a DJ who said, I want to do more bridal shows in 2016 because this is going to grow my business. That's great, but there's associated revenues and expenses. So you need to register for the shows, you need to staff them, you may need to build a display, you may need to offer show specials. And after doing all that, you hope to book so many events. So you want to put that in your model and see what kind of a return on investment you're going to get. Another example would be, let's say you wanted to do more video blogs because you believe that it would attract more high-end weddings. Well, there's some expenses associated. You need a Vimeo account. You may need to pay a video editor. You may need photograph and video equipment. There may be some staffing issues. So you want to put that in your model and see how many additional events you get at what price point, and does this make sense? The last reason to prepare a budget forecast is to help manage your cash flow and anticipate any gaps. Cash flow is the lifeblood of a business, and we all know of that talented wedding vendor, photographer, DJ who was really great at what they did, but had to shut their doors because they weren't a good business person. And in other words, they didn't manage their cash flow correctly, and it put them out of business. So, in fact, one talented event vendor who I know had a particularly harsh 2015 winter and spent the month of February eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's no joke, and you definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so the forecast template that I'm going to share in just a moment, it does have some simplifying assumptions. So first of all, it's a single operator model, so one DJ. Now it could be a DJ who owns his own company, or it could be a DJ who works for other companies, or a single company works for a single multi-op. But even that type of DJ, their revenues are the compensation, the wages that they earn from the DJ company, and there will also be certain expenses over the course of the year. Certainly not to the extent of a full-time professional DJ company, but there are expenses that need to be modeled. The model also simplistically assumes that when a DJ does a party, for example, a wedding in June, let's say it was a $1,500 fee, that all of that revenue is received in June. Now, in reality, typically there's a deposit and then final balance. That would be a little bit more difficult to model. You can do it, but to keep things simple, I just assumed that the revenues were earned in the month of the performance. So we're going to move on to the video presentation, and then we're going to talk more about how you can customize this to make it your own. Okay, so here is our financial forecast template, and it is set up as following. In the columns, we have the months of the year for the coming year, January through December, and a total, which adds up the data for each of the months into a total for the year. We're going to use a hypothetical DJ, DJ Bob. And DJ Bob performs at weddings, teen dance parties, and family parties, things like birthdays and communions. So in this yellow section here, we would enter the number of gigs per month by party type. So for example, in January, DJ Bob performs at no weddings, 2 teen dance parties, and 4 family parties. Now, the next section here, we would need to enter a projected average revenue per party type. So, as an example, Bob projects that he would earn $1,500 per wedding on average, $600 per teen dance party, and $500 per family party. This next section below takes the number of events per party type times the average price per event, and that results in the revenue per event. So for January, DJ Bob is projecting 2 teen dance parties at $600 per party, which results in $1,200 of revenue. You do that for each party type, you sum it up. Bob is projected to achieve sales of $3,200 for the month of January. You do this for each month, you run it across, and you'll see a total revenue projected for the year of $84,600, 94 jobs, and here's the revenue per each of the party types: $54,000 from weddings, $9,600 from teen dance parties, and $21,000 from other party types. So you could overwrite these with your own types of parties. You can also enter new party types to supplement this. Just insert a row, enter the data. You'll need to run a couple formulas, but I think it's pretty easy to follow. So next, expenses. DJs have some major categories of expenses, which I've deliberately made simple here. And the first category is marketing and advertising. As a DJ, if you're doing this full time and seriously, you should be spending some money on advertising and marketing to grow your business. So DJ Bob does wedding wire, the knot, and some bridal shows. So you just enter the projected expenses per month. Wedding wire and the knot are both $150 per month. Bridal shows, Bob hits the circuit pretty hard in the first quarter. Trying to capitalize on those holiday brides. And total marketing advertising for the year is projected at $6,000, which represents 7.1% of revenues. Next category of expenses: supplies, things like music subscriptions, party supplies, clothing, dry cleaning, things of that nature. Bob projected total supplies expense of $2,130 for the year, representing 2.5% of sales. Pretty small. DJs love to buy gear, and you should be buying equipment in any given year. So Bob, keeps his equipment spending pretty low during that slow winter time on the East Coast. In the spring and early summer, he comes out of his shell, purchases a Pioneer controller, some lighting, and then keeps his equipment spending pretty low for the rest of the year. Spends $4,740 on equipment for the entire year, representing 5.6% of sales. The next category of expenses is office expense. So these are overheads, things like insurance, rent, office supplies, continuing education if you do DJ conventions, which you should be doing, graphic design, promotional materials, web design, email accounts, professional fees for things like accountants and lawyers, cell phone expense, parking, tolls, interest expense if you have a business loan or credit card. So DJ Bob had a lot of these expenses, and a total of $8,320 in office expense for the year, representing 9.8% of sales. So total expenses are the expenses from marketing, advertising, supplies, equipment, and office. So you just sum those up. They're pretty variable by month, and Bob had total expenses for the year of $21,190, representing 25% of sales. Now, profit, that's what it's all about. It's essentially sales minus expenses equals profit. So you have in this model a monthly profit forecast. You could see low profits in the winter, rising a bit in the late spring, early summer. Bob again is spending a lot on equipment then, and then in the fall, when that equipment expenditure falls away, Bob's profits go really high, and he does quite well. Finishes the year with profit of $63,410. Next, profit margin is the net profit divided by the sales or revenues. So you can see a lower profit margin the early part of the year, moderate over the spring, summer, and then a quite high profit margin in the latter part of the year, as high as 90.5% 0.3% in October, and for the year, a profit margin for Bob of 75%, which is quite good. And it basically means that for every dollar in sales that comes into the business, 25%, 25 cents is going out to expenses, and 75% or 75 cents is going into the business owner or DJ's pocket. So running a business, you want to have a high profit margin. You want to be sure that you're earning an adequate profit, whether you do this as a hobby or as a full-time profession or somewhere in between. You should track this type of stuff. So finally, at the bottom of the sheet here, we have some profitability metrics. Okay, so the first one is the average revenue per job per gig. So we do all kinds of jobs as DJs. Some pay high, some pay low, and you want to know what you earn on average. So if you're doing some bar gigs and some weddings and some sweet 16s, well, how did you do on average? So in Bob's case, for the year, his average job had a price of $900. So not bad. He did some lower end work, but it didn't cost him too dearly. Now, on the expense side, he spent $225 per job, leaving him an average profit per job of $675. So a lot of DJs like to say, oh, I don't leave my driveway for anything less than $500 or whatever that number is. Well, that's a revenue number, but you should be thinking in terms of profits, like how much is left in your pocket after paying your various expenses, and what's that number. And finally, marketing and advertising can be a bit of a black hole. We spend a lot on these different programs. So in the case of Bob, over the course of the year, he spent $6,000 on marketing and advertising. If you divide that by the 94 jobs he did for the year, that is $64 per job. So that's what it costs to get one job in on average. You're paying $64, which I think is an important number to have a grasp on. So this last section here is called qualitative indicators. These are benchmarks that are personal to you, business drivers. So I just listed a couple of examples, and of course you may have your own. So if DJ Bob felt that meeting event planners, networking with wedding vendors was important to him, he might set a target of one networking meeting per month and try to stick to that, figuring that that's a driver of his revenues and profits. If Bob thought that booking the appointment was important because he's going to close 80 or 90% of those appointments, he might set himself a goal of 4 wedding consultations per month. If Bob was developing a staff of DJs trying to clone himself, he might want to set a minimum number of staff training sessions over the course of the year. And finally, for quality control, Bob is striving for perfection, but realizes that there may be some problem clients along the way, and he's kind of set a maximum number of complaints, refunds for the year as a bogey for himself. So that's how the model works. Again, overwrite the yellow with your assumptions. The blue are categories that you can overwrite or expand again by inserting rows. And the white cells and percentages and so forth should all be generated automatically. So with that said, we're going to get back to the PowerPoint presentation and let you know how you can get into this model and make it your own. Before entering in your figures into the financial model, I wanted to provide you a few tips about forecasting. So first, when you're creating plans for the coming year, you want to set out challenging goals for yourself, specific, quantifiable goals that will help to ensure that you work hard and stay motivated towards an end result. So imagine an NFL team that said, hey, we want to play hard this year and win some games. That's great, but it's not very specific. More specific would be, we would like to win our division and get to the Super Bowl, or win the Super Bowl. So for a DJ, it's the same deal. You could make some general statements like, hey, I want to work hard and do more weddings in 2016. Or you could be a lot more specific and say, in 2016, each month I want to have an extra $1,000 per month of profit than I did for months in 2015. So that's specific, it's quantifiable. When you have a target, there's an invisible hand that helps keep you motivated towards achieving that target and moving towards that goal. The goals are great, but by the same token, you want to avoid what they call stretch targets, which is an unrealistic target. So imagine a DJ who in 2015 performed at 5 weddings. If he said in 2016, I want to perform at 200 weddings and become the top wedding DJ in the state of Florida, I would say that's a stretch target. That's not realistic. And what's going to happen is, as the year goes on, the DJ is going to get very frustrated and throw the forecast in the garbage. So avoid stretch targets, but definitely push yourself. Now, when you're going through the forecast for the first time, you may need to do several versions or iterations of the expense side, the budget. Meaning that in the first go around, you may find that the money that you wanted to spend was too high. In other words, the profits that are derived by that budget are not high enough. So you may need to cut back some of those expenses until you get the profits that you're seeking. So that's perfectly normal. Last year when I did my forecast, I had to revise the expense side several times to make the math work. And then finally, the forecast model, as you saw before, has monthly forecasts. And so what you want to do is, after the end of a month, check out how you did versus the forecast and track yourself. And if you're doing well, that's great. Maybe you'll be running ahead and you can increase your forecast. But if you're running behind, you may need to revisit some of the strategies, refine, tweak those strategies in order to hit your numbers. But the forecast keeps you accountable to yourself as the year goes on. Okay, now to download, to access the template that I've been speaking about, you're going to need to get on the internet and go to my article on promobiledj.com called How to Create a DJ Business Forecast. Promobiledj.com is a site run by Stacy Zeman. She is a wonderful expert in the DJ industry. You should definitely follow ProMobileDJ on Facebook. And the link for the article is promobiledj.com/2015/11/how to create a DJ business forecast, with hyphens between each word and then another /. So you're going to get into that article, write down that link, and in the second to last section of the article, there's going to be a section called Accessing the Forecast Template. There's going to be detailed instructions and links to get the files. There are templates available for Mac. Mac has a spreadsheet program called Numbers. Also for Windows-based users, Microsoft Excel. So there's an Excel file. And if you have neither of these spreadsheet programs, you can use a free program that's internet-based. It's called Googe Sheets, and there's a link to use Googe Sheets as well. This is the section of the article on promobiledj.com that has the different links. So just look for that section again that says Accessing the Forecast Template. Well, this was a lot of information. Hopefully your head is not spinning too badly. But if you have any questions or get stuck on using these spreadsheets, feel free to reach out to me. Email is best, greg@ambientdj.com. Check me out on the internet, ambientdj.com. If you'd like to connect on social media, you can find me on Facebook at Gregg Hollmann, 2 G's, 2 L's, 2 N's, and on Twitter and Instagram at Ambient DJs. If you ever should need help with a bigger project, I am available for business consulting engagements. Hit me up. Let me know what you have in mind. And finally, wishing all of you a very happy, healthy, and prosperous 2016. Don't be afraid of numbers. Give it a try. Happy forecasting, and have a great new year, everybody. That concludes this episode. Peace out.